Investor Connect podcast program. This is Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of the show, in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, private equity, family offices, and many other investor groups for startups and growth companies. I hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you for joining us. Well, hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today I'm here with Vickie Zisman of Bastet Communications. Vickie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Great. Can you tell us about your background before working with startups? What did you do before now?
Well, I am a marketing communication person. And during my career, I came across various startups, various companies, and investors as well. And from my day job of doing communications, business development, and things like that, somehow I some sort of came to this nice little black book, so to speak, of investors. And they started to ask me whether I knew any interesting project to invest in. And then on the other hand, again, I don't know, for some reason, I started to get requests from startups to scout investors for them. So it was actually some sort of word of mouth from both sides. And I was just sucked into this activity of connecting investors to projects, or the other way around.
I see. Well, that's great. So what led you to start working on fundraising for startups in the different sectors you join?
Well, I don't have a vertical. I do have some sort of vertical focus, but not, let's say, horizontal one with regard to spheres. My main concern, especially in the current investment climate, is how close to market is a startup with their project. I mean, with all due respect, from my experience with investors and their desire, I would say natural desire to hedge risks, they're looking for startups that have some sort of almost market-ready technology. And this is the core consideration for me when startups approach me. I mean, technology industry is 20 years old, and I think the dust has settled, and the dumb money ran out in the first bust about 19 years ago. The second bust in 2008, I think, made the picture even clearer. So there are no eyeballs anymore, no grand ideas. And, in brackets, I don't mean WeWork, Uber, and such cult-like projects. The dust has settled, and there is now, I think, the smart money that is looking for a real business, not some sort of promises and ideas, but something that can be translated into solid business. And this is my primary consideration.
Very good. So what's your advice for people investing in the startup space? What do you tell them to do before they write that first check?
Well, there are two considerations. And again, I am talking from my own experience. So my statistics, let's say, are very personal and probably not indicative of anything. Well, you have the objective part, of course, of fundamentals, whether there is business in that sphere, and everything that I guess investors, all of them institutional or private strategic ones, know how to evaluate. And then the second parameter, which I think is no less important, is personal chemistry with the founders, with the startups. So, as you know, in The Godfathers, there is this famous quote of his, and he says, "Everything is personal." And you may have some sort of great technology, great product, but there is no connection between investors and the founders. It's a bit like marriage. If you go into some sort of serious long-term relationship, you want to be on the same page with that person with regard to mindset, interests, habits, whatever. I find that in investing industry, it's a bit similar.
That's a good point. Everything is personal. It's about personal relationships and working together personally. And I think that's a key element many entrepreneurs miss, is that It's just not about numbers. It's about people at the end, just as all businesses at the end, it's about people and relationships. Investing
Not
is no
only
different.
that, but building a company together, and knowing how to dance that tango, it's crucial. It's imperative. I mean, nobody wants to have, how shall I say, not good partners.
That's a good point. You have to have a good partner relationship. So let's talk about the state of investing in startups. And you work with Israeli startups and American investors and many groups. How do you work with Israeli startups? What's your advice there to investors who are looking to invest in Israeli startups?
Well, okay. First of all, maybe for a second, a bit bigger project that I have on my plate now, I will have an institutional, or let's say fund, which is international. So they have like European and American branches. But right now, I have worked mainly with European investors. But I guess in some sort of core points, it should be no different than with American ones. Israeli startups, I mean, Israeli strength is mainly in the initial, let's say, technology, more R&D. Israelis are very good at engineering, of coming up with great solutions. They're a bit less advanced in, I guess, business marketing, and this is where the investor may add major value to the partnership. One has to bear in mind cultural differences between Israelis and, let's say, any other foreign investor. Again, doesn't matter, I guess, whether they are European or American. Israelis are very direct. They say what they mean, what they think. Sometimes maybe in not such a good English, but they're very direct. They don't have hidden meanings, hidden issues. Sometimes it's hard for them to decipher foreign investors. For example, I have heard not once, but many times, that with American investors, when they are very polite and they don't want to discourage the project, even if they don't like it or they don't intend to invest in it, but they say, "Oh, you've done a good job, great job," and smile and everything. And Israelis take it at face value, and later they don't understand why they have been rejected. So I guess some sort of understanding or using the same language with the same business language, the same meaning is crucial for both Israelis and foreign investors who are interested in Israeli technology. Another actually issue that I would advise American potential investors to be open-minded about is a geographical proximity, or let's say distance. I understand that for Europeans it's easier because we're just across the pond from them. But if Americans like a certain product, a certain company, I would think they shouldn't be discouraged from going forward and investing. And it's a dynamic environment today. It's a dynamic mindset. So, of course, there are some sort of distances and long-term flights, but after some sort of initial reconnaissance period, there are modern communication applications. I mean, it shouldn't be such a big deal, actually.
That's very, very insightful. On the other side, how would you work with American investors if you're not in America? What do you find unusual about American investors that Israelis don't always understand at the first?
Again, the business language, I would say. What I mentioned briefly just a couple of seconds ago, business language. Mindset. I think that American investors could be a great asset for any Israeli company because they could open either an active investor. They could open the whole of US and maybe even North America for that particular company. I think it could be great. I think cultural bridges should be built. I think it's crucial to have that business understanding and to have some sort of business ethic, common business ethics in place at some sort of preliminary stage of negotiations and talks about investment.
So when you have an investor and a startup come together, how do you achieve the best deal possible? What can you do in negotiations to make it a win-win for both sides?
I think there should be a common ground of expectations. Both sides know that there's some sort of starting point to negotiation, and then if there is a genuine interest, both sides will meet somewhere in the middle. So there are starting points, of course, for both the company and the investors. There are known interests, for example, for a company to have as high valuation, as high investment valuation as possible. For the investors, there is, of course, a natural interest to get as big a chunk of the company as possible for their money. And from my experience of ongoing negotiations for that startup, the people come together to the common ground somewhere in the middle. I must say that I was very positively surprised by these European investors that I'm working currently with. They were very fair. They liked the technology, they liked the founders. They didn't try to rob them of the company. They are coming in as a smart investor, as an active investor that can actually boost the business to $1 billion company, and they are talking openly about it. And they are not trying, because it's a young fledgling company with a great product, they are not trying to, because they're an early investor, they're not trying to rob the founders of that, of their fruit, of their, brilliance. And I got a very positive, and actually it's very exciting to see an honest investor. I would say that particular person, because it's a private strategic investor, they're very, very honest. They're very decent. And it's simply a beautiful thing to see.
Well, that's great. It's great to work with people that are good and decent as well. So you work with a lot of startups in the business sector. What are the challenges that you see startups facing in today's landscape? Is it regulatory? Is it the market? Is it technical?
I think the major hurdle is money. Because again, the investment climate has changed. The investment climate has changed, and it's harder for startups to raise money. I mean, the investors are smarter. The founders, the entrepreneurs, I feel still a bit live in this legendary past of startup nation, or when you came with this brilliant idea on its being just an idea, you raised like first capital and everything was rosy and nice. Of course, investors naturally smarten up quicker. Entrepreneurs, it takes them longer to realize that the times have changed. And there is a decline of new incorporations in Israel, in new startups. Money is primary issue, because regulation, exports, things like that, it can be overcome. When a smart investor comes in, of course, one of the issues is to bring the company overseas, and then all the regulation and everything has to be in place. It's natural. So I would say money is the main issue.
Great. So how does Bastet Communications fit into the startup funding landscape? What exactly do you guys do and where do you fit in?
Well, actually, you guys, it's me. I am a one-person show. So if there are any American investors who are interested in Israeli technology, who are willing to take a facelift, and to take a faceleap and contact me to brainstorm what is of interest to them, and maybe I can help them.
Oh, very good. So, in the last few minutes that we have here, what else should we cover that we haven't?
If you have any other questions for me, if anybody wants to discuss how to do business with Israeli startups, I'm open even just to brainstorm, to consult. Another thing that I would say for American investors is to keep an open mind about cultural peculiarities of Israel. I mean, again, Israelis are brilliant in technology. They're very active. They're very open-minded, but they need a certain good business part or partners to make it real, to make the company an international success.
Well, very good. Well, how best for listeners to get back in touch with you and hear more about working with Israeli startups and investors?
Well, I think the best way would be to contact me via my LinkedIn profile. And I'm also an Israeli, so I'm a very active person and a very open minded person, hopefully. And we can take it from there.
Well, great. We'll put those in the show notes. Want to thank you for joining us today and hope to have you back for a follow up soon.
No problem. And thank you for having me again. And I'm at your disposal anytime, or any other person who wishes to do business with Israel and who is interested in Israeli technology.
Very good. Hope to talk to you again soon.
Likewise. Have a great rest of the day.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Paul T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.